Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. Long ago, when the world was young and the line between myth and reality was as thin as a whisper, the forest was known as Verdantia, a haven of life, vibrant and unspoiled. It was said that Verdantia was the sanctuary of a benevolent nature spirit who nurtured every living creature with gentle care. Yet not all was destined to remain in harmonious balance. A great betrayal wrought by the hand of a proud and heartless sorcerer shattered that fragile equilibrium. Desperate to harness the power of the spirit for his own gain, the sorcerer defiled the sacred grove at the heart of the forest, stealing away its essence and cursing the land in a bid for immortality. In his final hubristic act, the sorcerer was cast out by the vengeful forces of nature, but not before his malediction was sealed into the ancient oaks and towering pines of Verdantia. From that day forth, as the sun dipped low and twilight settled like a melancholy shroud over the land, the trees began to bleed. Their sap, a deep blood-red tincture, would seep from wounds unseen, marking each trunk with the sorrow of an age-long betrayal. The forest became known as the Bleeding Forest, a place of spectral beauty and eternal lament, where every drop of crimson was a reminder of promises broken and innocence lost. Tales passed down through generations. For centuries, the folk of nearby villages spoke of the Bleeding Forest in hushed tones around flickering fires. They recounted tales of travelers who had strayed too far into its depths and emerged forever changed, haunted by visions of ancient grief and spectral figures wandering among the trees. Some claim that the bleeding was not a curse at all, but a form of sacred weeping, a ritual mourning for the life that was stolen by greed and hubris. Others believe that within the sorrow lay the seeds of redemption, that the blood of the trees held the power to heal even the deepest wounds of the heart. In the modest town of Emberfall, nestled at the edge of the forest, lived a scholar named Callum Hawthorne. Known for his inquisitive mind and insatiable thirst for lore, Callum had grown up listening to the stories of the Bleeding Forest. The legends resonated with him, a symphony of beauty and despair that stirred something deep within his soul. When he learned of ancient manuscripts hinting at a ritual that might reverse the sorcerer's curse, Callum felt a call that he could not ignore. Armed with scrolls and maps inherited from his forefathers, he resolved to venture into the heart of the Bleeding Forest. His ambition was not to break the curse for personal glory, but to uncover the truth hidden in the crimson tears of the trees and to perhaps restore the balance that had been lost so long ago. Companions of the quest. Callum was not alone on his quest. He soon gathered a diverse band of companions who, like him, were drawn by the allure and mystery of the forest. There was Iceland, a wise herbalist whose knowledge of flora and healing was rivaled only by her empathy. Garrick, a seasoned ranger who knew every hidden trail and secret glade in the woods. And Morel, a melancholic minstrel whose haunting melodies could summon memories of the past and soothe even the weariest of hearts. Together they set out under a sky painted with the hues of early dusk, their spirits high despite the chill that crept along the forest's edge. Each step they took was accompanied by a sense of foreboding and wonder, the promise of unraveling ancient magic, of confronting a sorrow that had lain dormant for generations. The group's journey began at the forest's boundary, where the air was thick with mist and the first signs of the curse manifested. Here the trees bore slender wounds that glistened with droplets of red sap, illuminated by the soft glow of the twilight. As they pressed onward, the forest seemed to breathe around them, a slow, rhythmic pulse that echoed the heartbeat of a land burdened by centuries of sorrow. Garrick led them along a winding path, one that twisted through groves of ancient oaks and towering pines. With each step, the light dimmed and the shadows lengthened, coalescing into eerie figures that danced at the edge of vision. The forest, though dark and foreboding, was alive with the whispers of nature, echoes of a time when magic flowed as freely as the river and every leaf held a secret. B. The first signs of the curse. As the twilight deepened, the companions encountered their first true wonder, a clearing where the trees stood like silent sentinels, their bark marred by wounds that wept crimson tears. In the center of the clearing, a colossal oak, gnarled and majestic, bled profusely, a sorrowful fountain that pooled into a small, ruby-hued pond. Iceland knelt to examine the bloodied ground, her experienced fingers tracing the patterns in the sap as though deciphering an ancient language. "This is no ordinary wound," she murmured, her voice a blend of awe and melancholy. "It is as if the tree mourns its own demise, a lament for a betrayal that has festered for ages." Her words, soft and resonant, stirred something within the group, a shared understanding that the forest itself was a living chronicle of pain and regret, a canvas upon which nature's grief was painted in vivid scarlet. As the days passed and the group ventured deeper into the forest, the landscape transformed into a realm that defied ordinary reason. The trees grew taller, their trunks twisted like anguished figures in mid-sorrow, and the ground beneath was soft with fallen leaves and the echoes of forgotten prayers. At night, when the twilight lingered a little longer and the boundaries between past and present blurred, the companions gathered around small fires to share their discoveries. Callum, poring over his ancient manuscripts by flickering light, uncovered references to a ritual, a ceremony that might cleanse the land of its curse. The text spoke of a sacred clearing where the heart of the forest pulsed with unyielding sorrow, where the spirit of the betrayed was bound to the bleeding trees. Only by offering a sacrifice of true remorse and a vow to restore the natural order could the curse be undone. B. The legend of the Weeping Oak. Among the myriad legends that Callum deciphered was the tale of the Weeping Oak, a venerable tree believed to be the first victim of the sorcerer's betrayal. It was said that this ancient oak had witnessed the treachery firsthand, and in its anguish, its wounds began to bleed. Over time, the weeping oak became the nucleus of the curse, its sorrow radiating outward and infecting the entire forest. The manuscripts hinted that if the heart of the weeping oak could be reached and its pain acknowledged, then perhaps the curse might be reversed. The idea ignited a fierce determination in the companions. Guided by Garrick's expert navigation and Iceland's deep connection to the natural world, they set off to find the weeping oak, hoping that its secret might hold the key to healing the forest's wounded soul. After days of arduous travel through tangled undergrowth and over moss-covered stones, the fellowship finally arrived at a secluded glen where the weeping oak stood in solemn majesty. Bathed in the ethereal light of twilight, the oak's enormous trunk bore scars that ran like rivers of red. Its leaves, once vibrant green, shimmered with an otherworldly sheen, as if imbued with the light of a dying star. The atmosphere was heavy with sorrow, a palpable presence that pressed upon their hearts. Morel, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, began to sing a haunting melody, a song of loss and longing that seemed to harmonize with the natural lament of the forest. As her notes filled the air, the sap from the weeping oak pulsed in time with the melody, as if the tree itself were weeping in response. Callum stepped forward, reciting the incantations he had painstakingly transcribed from the ancient texts. With each word, the forest seemed to hold its breath, and the crimson droplets slowed their descent, gathering in a shimmering pool at the base of the oak. In that sacred moment, the companions felt the raw, unfiltered grief of the forest, and within that grief, the faint promise of healing. B. The ritual of renewal. Guided by the revelations of the manuscripts and the silent plea of the weeping oak, The fellowship prepared to perform the ritual of renewal. They arranged sacred symbols around the tree, using leaves, stones, and water drawn from a clear spring deep within the forest. Each member of the group offered a personal token, a relic of their past, a symbol of the pain they had endured, to honor the sorrow that bound them to the forest's ancient curse. Under the gathering twilight, with the last vestiges of daylight clinging to the horizon, Callum led the incantation. His voice trembled with emotion as he invoked the spirit of nature, beseeching it to mend the wounds of betrayal and sorrow. Iceland's gentle hands anointed the trunk with the water, while Garrick and Morel laid their tokens at its base. As the ritual reached its zenith, the forest seemed to stir. A low hum reverberated through the undergrowth, and the bleeding slowed to a steady, almost rhythmic pulse. Then, in a breathtaking moment of catharsis, the scarlet sap began to recede. The weeping oak's wounds, once so raw and unyielding, began to close as if kissed by the healing light of forgiveness. The glen was filled with a soft, radiant glow that outshone the twilight, a silent promise that the cycle of sorrow could indeed give way to renewal. In the days that followed the ritual, the bleeding forest transformed. The trees no longer wept with uncontrolled anguish. Instead, their crimson sap flowed gently like a healing balm, nourishing the soil and restoring balance to the land. The once pervasive gloom gave way to a cautious optimism, a recognition that even the deepest wounds could mend with time and understanding. The people of nearby Emberfall, who had long regarded the forest with a mixture of fear and reverence, began to see it in a new light. Pilgrims and healers visited the glen, seeking the restorative power of the weeping oak sap and the lessons born from its sorrow. The forest became a symbol of transformation, a living reminder that within the darkness of grief lay the seed of hope. Be the legacy of the journey. For Callum and his companions, the journey had been as transformative as the forest itself. They returned to Emberfall carrying not only the knowledge of ancient magic, but also the deep personal understanding that to embrace one's hidden sorrows was to unlock the potential for healing. Callum compiled his experiences into a comprehensive chronicle, a manuscript titled Crimson Echoes, The Healing of a Bleeding Forest, which soon became a treasured text for scholars, healers, and those seeking to mend their own wounded hearts. Morel's melancholic songs, once filled with the lament of loss, now resonated with a bittersweet hope, a melody that bridged the gap between despair and renewal. Garrick's stories of the journey spread far and wide, inspiring future generations to tread the path of truth, however painful it might be. And Iceland, with her gentle wisdom, continued to nurture the healing power of nature, tending to the forest as though it were a living, breathing repository of life's eternal lessons. Years have passed since the day the bleeding forest was transformed. Today, as twilight falls over the valley, the trees still release their crimson tears. But now these tears are seen not as a curse, but as a symbol of resilience, of the ability to heal even the deepest wounds. The weeping oak stands as a monument to the ancient sorrow that once plagued the land, its branches now heavy with the promise of renewal, and its scarred bark a testament to the power of forgiveness. In Emberfall, under the gentle glow of dusk, villagers and travelers alike gather to honor the memory of the past and the hope of the future. They speak of the forest with reverence and gratitude, knowing that every drop of red sap is a reminder that through confronting one's pain, life can emerge even more vibrant and whole. The story of the forest where the trees bleed at twilight endures, a timeless legend passed down through generations. It is a tale of betrayal and redemption, of nature's inexorable cycle of sorrow and healing, and of the courageous souls who dare to journey into the heart of darkness to find the light beneath. In the quiet rustle of leaves and the soft murmur of the wind, one can still hear the echoes of that ancient promise, that even in the depths of despair, hope will blossom anew. Long ago, in an age when magic intertwined with everyday life, there lived a reclusive artisan named Serafine Calderon. Renowned for her mastery over glass and light, Seraphine was said to have been blessed, or cursed, by the ancient spirits of the earth. It is told that during a night when the silver moon shone with an eerie brilliance, she discovered a hidden grove deep within the forest. There, amidst the gnarled roots and murmuring streams, she unearthed a shard of crystal that pulsed with an inner glow. Inspired by this otherworldly fragment, Seraphine labored for months in her solitary workshop, fusing it with rare sands gathered under the midnight sky and water from a sacred spring. In the process, she created a mirror of exceptional beauty and uncanny power. The polished surface of the mirror shone like liquid starlight, and it was said that upon gazing into it, one could perceive not only one's own reflection, but also the hidden layers that lay beneath. The true nature of things, the unseen currents of emotion, and the long-buried truths of the past. From the moment of its creation, the mirror sparked both admiration and dread among those who heard its tale. Some called it the seer's glass, a divine instrument meant to reveal the inner workings of the heart and soul. Others whispered of a curse, a portent that the mirror would force its viewers to confront not only the beauty within, but also the darkness lurking beneath. As word spread, the mirror changed hands many times, its provenance shrouded in mystery and often leaving behind a trail of sorrow, revelation, and transformation. Seraphine, burdened by the unforeseen consequences of her creation, hid the mirror away in a secret chamber within her ancestral home. There it sat undisturbed for decades, its surface a silent sentinel to the truth it kept. Yet fate, it seemed, had other plans for the enchanted glass. In the centuries that followed, the mirror's legend grew in both scope and severity. Nobles, mystics, and even common folk became entranced by the promise of insight into what lay beneath, the hidden fears, suppressed desires, and unresolved sorrows that shaped their destinies. Tales abounded of those who dared to peer into the mirror's depths, only to be confronted with images of past misdeeds, future regrets, or personal demons that they had long denied. In some accounts, a glance into the mirror revealed secrets that shattered families, ruined reputations, and altered the course of entire kingdoms. Yet for every tale of despair, there were also stories of redemption. A repentant ruler who, upon witnessing the true cost of his ambition, stepped down from power to heal a divided nation. A broken-hearted lover who, by facing the truth of their own vulnerability, found the strength to rebuild their life. The mirror did not simply punish, it offered a path to understanding, if only one could endure the agony of self-revelation. The curse of the mirror was as profound as its gift. Those who gazed too long often found themselves haunted by images that would invade their dreams. Some reported that the mirror's revelations began to manifest in the world around them. Phantom figures and reflective surfaces, whispers in the silence of midnight, and unexplained changes in their fate. The mirror, it was said, did not merely reflect the truth, it shaped it, weaving the hidden into the very fabric of reality. In a modest town nestled on the edge of a great forest, there lived a young scholar named Adrian Verity. Adrian was known for his voracious appetite for knowledge and his deep-seated belief that every mystery, no matter how dark, held the key to human understanding. Haunted by personal loss and a sense that his life was incomplete, he dedicated himself to studying the arcane and the forgotten. In one of the dusty corridors of the town's ancient library, he discovered a tattered manuscript recounting the legend of Seraphine Calderon's enchanted mirror. The manuscript described in exquisite detail how the mirror revealed not only the physical form, but also the hidden essence that lay beneath. a truth that resonated with Adrian's own yearning to understand the layers of his soul. Driven by both scholarly intrigue and a personal desire for clarity, he set out on a quest to find the mirror and uncover its secrets. Adrian's research led him to a long-forgotten estate, once the home of Serafine Calderon. The mansion, now cloaked in ivy and decay, stood as a silent testament to a bygone era of magic and beauty. With little more than his manuscript, a few precious books, and an unwavering resolve, he journeyed to the estate, where he hoped to find the secret chamber that housed the mirror. The journey was arduous. Adrian traversed dense forests, crossed murmuring streams, and navigated through crumbling ruins that spoke of long-lost grandeur. Every step brought him closer to a destiny that would challenge his notions of reality and self. At last, after days of wandering through nature's wild embrace, Adrian arrived at the estate. The mansion's grandeur had been eroded by time, yet even in its dilapidated state, it exuded a mysterious aura. Guided by the clues in the manuscript, he discovered a concealed door behind a faded tapestry in the mansion's great hall. With cautious hands, he pushed it open, revealing a narrow staircase that spiraled downward into darkness. Torch in hand, he descended into a vast subterranean chamber. The walls were lined with intricate carvings depicting scenes of both joy and despair, a visual chronicle of human existence as seen through the eyes of an artisan who had wrestled with both beauty and sorrow. At the far end of the chamber, resting upon a pedestal of carved stone, was the mirror. Its frame was wrought of silver and adorned with delicate motifs of entwining vines and weeping angels, and its surface shone with an unearthly light. Adrian's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the mirror. In that moment, time seemed to slow. The air grew thick with anticipation, and a strange energy pulsed in the depths of the chamber. With a trembling hand, he raised his gaze to meet his reflection. But what he saw was not merely his face, it was a tapestry of images unfolding before him. There, beneath the veneer of his outward appearance, were fleeting visions, echoes of forgotten memories, hidden fears, and secrets that he had long buried in the recesses of his mind. For a long, agonizing minute, he stood transfixed, watching as the mirror revealed layers of truth that he had never dared to acknowledge. His eyes filled with both wonder and terror as the visions deepened. Faces of loved ones lost, shadowy figures from his past, and even specters of what might yet be, all danced across the mirror's surface in a silent, eternal performance. The revelations were overwhelming. Adrian felt as if the mirror were tearing away at the fabric of his being, exposing vulnerabilities and wounds he had hidden even from himself. With every image, he experienced a surge of emotion: grief for the moments lost, regret for mistakes unatoned, and a profound sorrow for the parts of himself that had been forever shrouded in darkness. The mirror, with its uncanny ability to show what lay beneath, forced him to confront the totality of his existence, the light in the dark interwoven in an intricate, inescapable tapestry. For days he found himself unable to escape the mirror's pull. Sleep eluded him as the visions haunted his waking hours. Friends and fellow scholars attempted to comfort him, but Adrian could not share the depths of his revelations. The mirror had become a part of him, an indelible mark upon his soul that changed his understanding of who he was. In the solitude of that hidden chamber, Adrian reached a crossroads. The mirror's revelations offered a choice: succumb to the despair of knowing every hidden truth, or embrace the pain as a path to healing and transformation. It was a decision that would determine the course of his future. Slowly he realized that while the mirror had unburdened him with harsh truths, it also offered the chance for redemption. To truly live, he would have to accept both the beauty and the horror of his own depths. With time and reflection, Adrian began to understand that what the mirror showed was not a curse, but a profound gift. In facing his innermost fears and regrets, he could learn to heal. He started writing extensively, journals that poured out every raw emotion, every hidden thought that the mirror had revealed. His writings became a record of his journey toward self-acceptance, a testament to the power of truth in transforming despair into wisdom. He sought counsel from elders and mystics, those who had long studied the balance between light and shadow in the human soul. Their guidance helped him see that every soul was a mosaic of joys and sorrows, that every wound carried the potential for growth, and that the act of confronting one's hidden self was a sacred rite of passage. As the seasons changed, so too did Adrian. The mirror, once a source of unbearable torment, became a cherished mentor in his quiet hours. He began to use its revelations to help others, a small group of seekers who, like him, longed to understand the truth beneath their own facades. In secret gatherings held in the old mansion's restored library, he shared his insights and the stories written in his journals. Slowly, others began to see that the mirror's power was not one of destruction, but of illumination. A way to guide souls through the labyrinth of their inner lives toward healing and compassion. News of Adrian's transformation and the healing he found spread beyond the quiet valley. Scholars, artists, and even those once wary of the mirror's reputed curse began to visit the estate. The mansion, long shrouded in mystery and decay, was gradually restored to its former glory. The hidden chamber was open to those prepared to confront their own truths, and the mirror was enshrined as a symbol of the journey from darkness into light. Visitors reported that the mirror's surface now shimmered with a gentler light, revealing not only the raw, hidden depths, but also the hope that could be found when one embraced every part of oneself. It became a pilgrimage site for those seeking truth and healing, a reminder that understanding what lies beneath is essential to the process of transformation. In his later years, Adrian Verity compiled his experiences into a grand compendium of reflections, a work that intertwined personal memoir with ancient lore, a guide for future generations on the arduous yet rewarding path of self-discovery. His writings, imbued with both melancholy and a resolute hope, echoed the eternal truth that to know oneself is to embrace the totality of one's being, light and shadow alike. His compendium, titled Beneath the Surface, The Journey Within, became a revered text among those who sought not only knowledge, but also the courage to face their inner demons. The mirror, still ensconced in the ancient estate, served as a constant reminder that every soul, no matter how scarred, held the potential for rebirth. Years have passed since Adrian first discovered the mirror that shows what lies beneath. The valley now thrives with a quiet, steadfast energy, a community of souls who have learned that confronting one's hidden depths is not a punishment, but a necessary passage toward wholeness. The mirror continues to reside in the restored estate, its surface reflecting not just the external world, but the infinite, intricate layers of every soul that gazes into it. On quiet mornings, when the first light of dawn kisses the dewy grass, visitors pause before the mirror. Some see tears of sorrow, others see sparks of hope, but all understand that the journey towards self-knowledge is one of continual growth. In the gentle shimmer of the glass, they find solace in knowing that beneath every scar lies the potential for healing, and that the truth of who we are is a tapestry woven from both light and shadow. Thus, the story of the mirror that shows what lies beneath endures, a tale of transformation, the courage to confront the hidden self, and the enduring hope that through understanding our deepest truths, we may emerge whole and free. In every reflection, there is a promise that even the most concealed darkness can be illuminated, and that every soul has the power to rise from the depths and shine with its own unique light. Long before the manor was abandoned and left to decay, its corridors echoed with laughter and the soft hum of genteel gatherings. Yet there was one room, secluded at the very heart of the mansion, that remained shrouded in silence, a silence so profound it seemed to absorb every sound. In hushed conversations, the residents called it the Room of Whispers, unaware of the terror that would later come to be associated with it. Over time, as tragedy befell the manor and sorrow seeped into every stone, the silence transformed into a cacophony of despair. Shadows on the walls began to twist and writhe, and at the stroke of midnight, their silent forms erupted into screams that could chill the soul. The origins of the cursed room were rooted in a betrayal that stained the manor's history. In a time long past, a revered noble family dwelled within the mansion. Their prosperity, however, was built upon dark secrets and bitter feuds. When the patriarch of the family, driven by pride and consumed by jealousy, deceived his most trusted kin for personal gain, an ancient force was provoked. The vengeful spirits of those betrayed, seeking retribution for their shattered lives, cursed the very room where the treachery occurred. Their lamentations were so powerful that even the passing of centuries could not mute them. Instead, the room became a repository for sorrow, its shadows imbued with a pain so intense that on quiet nights one could hear them scream. Tucked away behind a heavy oak door, bound in tarnished iron, the infamous chamber was a study in gloom. Its walls, once adorned with opulent tapestries, now bore peeling layers of faded grandeur, stained with the residue of ancient tears. The floor, covered in dusty, worn carpets, resonated with the weight of innumerable secrets. It was said that within these walls, light fought an endless battle with darkness, each beam of moonlight revealing silhouettes that moved with unsettling life. For those who dared enter, the experience was nothing short of a descent into madness. The air was thick with a chill that seeped into the bones, and every surface seemed to pulse with a life of its own. It was in this room that the shadows, long, twisting forms that defied the natural order, would suddenly burst forth with an unearthly scream, as if crying out for justice, forgiveness, or release from an eternal torment. Within the room, the shadows were not mere absences of light, but entities imbued with emotion. Their screams were not random. They were the voices of the lost, echoing the pain of broken bonds and unhealed wounds. Some claimed to hear the anguished cries of a young woman betrayed by the man she loved, while others swore they could distinguish the tormented pleas of a father mourning the loss of his only child. Each scream was a fragment of a forgotten story, a curse that trapped the echoes of grief within the very fabric of the room. In a nearby village, nestled in the foothills of the ancient estate, lived a scholar named Evander Blackwood. Known for his relentless pursuit of the arcane and his collection of forbidden texts, Evander had spent years researching the manor's tragic past. Tales of the cursed room had haunted him since childhood, and his nights were filled with dreams of anguished voices and flickering shadows. Determined to uncover the truth behind the legend, he resolved to visit the manor and document the horrors concealed within its walls. Evander arrived at the manor on a bitter autumn evening. The wind howled through barren trees, and a thin mist clung to the ground like a shroud. With a lantern in hand and a heart steeled against the unknown, he pushed open the creaking gate and stepped into the realm of lost souls. As he navigated the labyrinthine corridors, Evander felt an oppressive weight settling over him. The mansion, though silent, seemed to watch him with unseen eyes. Finally, he reached the door to the infamous room. With trembling hands, he turned the heavy key and pushed the door open. The moment the door creaked ajar, an overwhelming chill rushed out, as though the very essence of sorrow had been unleashed. Inside, Evander's lantern cast long, wavering shadows against the walls. For a long, heart-stopping minute, there was only silence. Then, as the clock struck midnight, the room came alive. The shadows began to convulse, and with a sudden, ear-piercing wail, they screamed, a sound that shattered the quiet and echoed like 1,000 lost souls crying out in despair. The scream was not just a sound, It was an assault on the senses. Evander felt his mind teeter on the edge of comprehension as the room seemed to close in around him. The voices, layered upon one another, recounted tales of betrayal, loss, and injustice so profound that his heart pounded in terror and sorrow. The intensity of the sound made his vision blur, and for a fleeting moment he saw flashes of the past, a glimpse of the noble family, the treachery that had ignited the curse, and the endless mourning that had ensnared the shadows. Unable to bear the cacophony, Evander staggered backward. His carefully kept journal slipped from his grasp, pages scattering like desperate memories across the cold floor. The room, now fully awakened, seemed to pulse with a rhythm of despair, drawing him deeper into its dark embrace. As Evander fought to maintain his sanity, one shadow broke away from the rest, a figure that appeared more defined, more human than the others. It moved slowly, its form shifting between the solid and the spectral, until it hovered before him. In a voice both sorrowful and commanding, it spoke. "Do you seek to know our pain, scholar? To bear witness to our eternal lament?" The voice was laden with centuries of grief, yet within it lay a hint of hope, a desperate desire for liberation. Though terrified, Evander found himself compelled to answer. He whispered, "I seek the truth of this curse, so that the suffering may be understood, and perhaps one day set free." The shadow regarded him with a sadness that pierced his soul. "The truth lies within the betrayal of hearts, in the echoes of promises broken," it intoned. "Only by embracing our sorrow can the chains of the curse be undone." In that moment of anguished revelation, Evander understood that his quest was not merely academic. It was a journey into the very heart of human grief. The shadow's words resonated with him, and though his mind recoiled at the prospect of confronting such darkness, he knew he must persevere. The spectral figure extended a hand, its form flickering like a flame in the wind. "Take this," it whispered, "and bind your soul with our memories. Only then may you see the path to redemption." With trembling fingers, Evander accepted a small, dark medallion that materialized from the shadow. Its surface was etched with symbols of mourning and hope intertwined, a talisman of sorrow that would forever link him to the voices of the past. Empowered by the medallion, Evander spent nights poring over ancient texts and deciphering the cryptic language of the manor's history. The medallion allowed him to see fragments of the past, the moment of betrayal in the family, the anguished cries of those left behind, and the genesis of the curse that had cursed the room. Each revelation was a dagger of pain, yet with each truth uncovered, the intensity of the screaming shadows slowly abated. Guided by visions and haunted by echoes, Evander realized that the key to breaking the curse lay in a ritual of atonement, a ceremony that would reconcile the tortured spirits with the living world. It required an offering of genuine remorse and a vow to remember the pain without being consumed by it. In essence, it demanded the acceptance of sorrow as an essential part of life and the transformation of grief into wisdom. As another midnight approached, the manor's atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation. Evander, now marked by the medallion and forever changed by his encounters, prepared for the ritual. In the center of the cursed room, he arranged relics of the past, a faded portrait of the noble family, a rusted locket containing a lock of hair, and a small vial of water from the manor's ancient well, each a symbol of the pain and love that had once flourished within these walls. With a quill and parchment, he penned words of lament and promise, an invocation to the lost souls, asking for forgiveness and pledging to bear their stories so that their suffering might never be forgotten. The incantations, drawn from the darkest corners of forgotten lore, resonated through the chamber as if the walls themselves were weeping. As the ritual commenced, the cursed room transformed once more. The oppressive silence gave way to a subdued murmur, and the flickering shadows gathered around Evander. their forms wavering with a strange, almost reverent stillness. The medallion at his chest pulsed in time with his heartbeat as he read aloud the sacred words, each syllable a bridge between the living and the damned. Gradually, the cacophony of screams softened to a low, mournful hymn, a chorus of voices that told of loss, regret, and the eternal hope for forgiveness. The spectral figure that had first spoken to him reappeared, its form now less menacing and more sorrowfully serene. "Your voice carries the weight of truth," it said softly. "In your remembrance, we find our release." As the final words of the ritual echoed off the walls, a brilliant, ethereal light filled the room. The shadows, one by one, began to dissipate into the light, their screams transforming into whispers of gratitude and farewell. When the first rays of dawn crept through the broken windows of the manor, the cursed room was transformed. The oppressive weight of despair had lifted, replaced by a quiet, reflective peace. Though the echoes of sorrow still lingered, they were now gentle reminders of past wounds that had begun to heal, rather than torments that would forever haunt the living. Evander emerged from the room forever altered. His eyes, once filled with terror, now shone with a deep empathy and understanding of the human heart's capacity to bear sorrow and to transcend it. The medallion remained around his neck as a token of his journey, a symbol that the pain of the past could be transformed into a beacon of wisdom for future generations. News of the transformation spread slowly through the nearby village. While many still spoke in hushed tones of the cursed room and the screams of shadows, a new narrative began to take shape. A narrative of redemption, acceptance, and the healing power of memory. Evander dedicated himself to chronicling the stories of those lost and the lessons learned from the cursed chamber, ensuring that the legacy of sorrow was remembered not as a burden, but as a path toward understanding and compassion. Years passed, and the manor, once a place of relentless terror, became a site of pilgrimage for those seeking to understand the complexities of grief and redemption. The room where shadows once screamed stood as a solemn reminder that even the darkest of curses could be unraveled by the courage to face one's own sorrow. Visitors reported hearing faint echoes, whispers of the past that, rather than instilling fear, offered solace and a connection to the eternal cycle of loss and renewal. Evander Blackwood, now a venerable keeper of the manor's secrets, often wandered the quiet corridors. In his twilight years, he would pause before the chamber, now bathed in gentle light, and listen to the soft murmur of memories. He knew that while the screams of shadows had faded into whispers, their stories lived on, etched into the very fabric of time, a reminder that in every heartache there lies the seed of healing. Thus, the story of the room where shadows scream endures, a tale of haunting despair and transformative redemption, of cursed voices that ultimately found release through the enduring power of remembrance. In the silence that now pervades that ancient chamber, one can still hear, if only softly, the echoes of lives once shattered, now pieced together in the quiet beauty of forgiveness and hope. On stormy nights when the ocean roared like a living beast and the moon played hide-and-seek behind swirling clouds, the inhabitants of the coastal town of Mariner's Rest would speak in hushed tones about the vanishing shipwreck. Fishermen whose weathered faces bore the marks of countless tempests recalled the spectral image of a great galleon that emerged from the mist. Its tattered sails and broken masts were visible only for a fleeting moment before it was swallowed by the tide, leaving behind nothing but a memory and a chill that gripped the heart. Legends told of ancient curses, lost treasure, and the restless souls of seafarers doomed to wander the depths. Over generations, the story of the disappearing wreck had grown into myth, a reminder that some mysteries of the sea were meant to remain forever hidden. Long before Mariner's Rest was even a whisper on the map, a proud sailing vessel known as the Celestial Maiden ruled the open waters. Commanded by Captain Evander Drake, A man renowned for his daring voyages and his unwavering loyalty to his crew, the ship sailed in pursuit of new lands and untold riches. Yet fate would not be so kind. During one fateful voyage, the celestial maiden encountered a tempest of unimaginable fury. The storm's anger was not solely of nature, many believed, but a divine retribution born of ancient transgressions. As the vessel struggled against the maelstrom, Captain Drake and his crew were forced to confront a terrible secret, a forbidden relic, stolen from a long-forgotten temple of the sea gods, lay hidden in the ship's hold. In their arrogance, they had disturbed a power older than time itself. In a night of terror and crashing waves, the storm raged with a vengeance that no mortal could withstand. When dawn broke over a calmed sea, the ship was found wrecked upon a narrow, craggy shore. But as the tide advanced, the remnants of the once mighty vessel seemed to dissolve into the surging water, as if swallowed by the curse that had been set in motion. From that day forward, it was said that the celestial maiden was condemned to reappear only at the edge of twilight and vanish with the turning of the tide, forever trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead. The curse of the celestial maiden wove itself into the fabric of coastal folklore. Mariners believed that when the ship appeared, it was not merely a wreck, but a vessel carrying the tormented souls of Captain Drake and his doomed crew. Their spectral forms were said to wander the decks of the ghost ship, murmuring tales of betrayal, loss, and the unyielding grip of fate. The wreck became a symbol, a warning that those who tamper with the ancient powers of the sea risk incurring a debt that may never be repaid. It was on an unusually calm evening that young Isla Marlowe, a curious daughter of a local fisherman, first saw the ghostly ship. While walking along the moonlit beach, Isla noticed a strange gleam among the rocky outcrops. As she drew closer, the silhouette of a grand galleon emerged from a veil of fog. Its figure was both majestic and melancholic, its broken masts and decaying hull telling a story of both glory and downfall. Isla stood transfixed as the tide began to roll in. With each passing minute, the ship's form grew fainter, its outline dissolving into the churning water. Just as quickly as it had appeared, the vessel vanished completely, leaving Isla with nothing but a lingering sense of sorrow and a secret burning within her heart. Word of Isla's sighting spread like wildfire through Mariner's Rest. The town, already steeped in lore and superstition, buzzed with renewed fervor. Elders recalled their own half-forgotten memories of the ghost ship, and local scholars debated the true nature of the curse. Some whispered of lost fortunes hidden within the wreck's sunken hold, while others warned that seeking the ship could invite misfortune. Yet for Isla, the experience ignited a determination to understand what lay behind the spectral apparition. Isla soon found herself surrounded by those who, too, felt the magnetic pull of the mystery. Among them was Captain Roland, a retired seafarer whose weathered visage and gruff manner belied a deep well of knowledge about maritime legends. There was also Lillian, a scholarly historian from the distant city of Port Aurelia, whose research into ancient curses and sunken relics had brought her to Mariner's Rest. Completing the group was Jonas, a quiet but resolute boat builder whose hands, scarred by decades of labor, had built vessels that withstood even the fiercest storms. Together they formed an unlikely fellowship bound by the desire to unearth the truth behind the vanishing shipwreck. Their goal was clear: to follow the whispers of the past, to dive into the murky depths of history and myth, and perhaps to confront the curse that had ensnared the celestial maiden. Their investigation led them first to the coastal library, a modest, time-worn building filled with manuscripts and diaries, chronicling the lives of those who had once sailed these treacherous waters. In the brittle pages of a logbook written by a long-deceased sailor, they found cryptic references to a ship that returns with the tide and a dire warning against disturbing the relic hidden within its hold. Further, an old map hinted at a submerged cave system along the cliffs, a possible resting place for the stolen relic and the key to the curse. Armed with these clues, the Fellowship set out on a daring expedition. They rented a sturdy boat and sailed to the treacherous rock formations near the suspected location. With each cresting wave and each echo of the wind, they felt the weight of destiny bearing down upon them. For the sea, they knew, held secrets that could either grant unimaginable fortune or unleash an ancient wrath. One fog-shrouded morning, as the tide receded to reveal hidden passages along the cliffs, the Fellowship anchored their boat in a sheltered cove. Using lanterns and ropes, they ventured into a labyrinth of underwater caves carved into the ancient rock. The damp, echoing corridors were filled with strange bioluminescent fungi and the haunting sounds of water dripping onto stone, a solemn, rhythmic beat that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Deep within the maze, they discovered a cavern marked with faded symbols and inscriptions in a language long lost. In the center of the cavern lay an altar, and upon it, half buried in silt and seaweed, was the relic, a crystalline object pulsing with an ethereal light. The very air in the cavern seemed charged with a force that was both mesmerizing and foreboding. As Jonas carefully extracted the relic, a tremor of energy coursed through the cavern. The water around them churned, and the sound of distant, mournful voices echoed off the walls. It became apparent that the relic was the very heart of the ancient curse, a talisman that had once been the focus of divine retribution. Its removal disrupted the balance, and for a brief, terrifying moment, the Fellowship feared that they had awakened forces beyond their control. Yet, driven by a mix of fear and hope, they carried the relic back to Mariner's Rest, resolved to use it to break the curse once and for all. The path ahead was uncertain, but the knowledge they had gained and the courage of their collective hearts was a beacon in the gathering darkness. In the days that followed, preparations for a final confrontation with the curse were made in earnest. Under the guidance of Lillian's research and Captain Roland's seafaring wisdom, the Fellowship devised a ritual to return the relic to its rightful place, thereby restoring balance and freeing the celestial maiden from its spectral torment. On the night of a rare lunar eclipse, when the veil between the worlds was at its thinnest, they gathered on the desolate shore. The beach, normally silent and unassuming, transformed into a sacred ground, illuminated by the eerie light of the eclipsed moon. In a circle of salt and sea glass, they placed the relic upon a stone plinth and began the incantations described in the ancient manuscripts. As their voices rose in a haunting cadence, the sea itself seemed to answer. Waves crashed against the rocks with an urgency that shook the very earth, and the fog over the horizon began to swirl more violently. The energy of the ritual resonated with the pulse of the ocean, as if the land and sea were locked in a timeless dance of retribution and redemption. In the climax of the ritual, a shock of brilliant light burst forth from the relic. The very fabric of the night seemed to tear apart, and in that dazzling moment, the ghostly form of the celestial maiden materialized on the horizon. The ship, its silhouette bathed in spectral light, drifted slowly toward the shore. For a few heartbeats, it appeared as a vision of both despair and majesty, a vessel whose tragic fate had been written in the annals of time. As the relic's light pulsed, the curse began to unravel. The phantom ship's form wavered, then faded, as if it were dissolving into the ocean mist. With the rising tide, the cursed wreck was drawn back into the depths, its tormented presence finally laid to rest. The fog, too, began to lift, retreating as the first hints of dawn broke over the horizon, a dawn unmarred by the shroud of ancient sorrow. In the wake of the ritual, Mariner's Rest experienced a transformation. The once ominous fog that had haunted its shores for generations receded, replaced by the clear light of a new day. The townspeople emerged from their homes with cautious optimism, and the sea, now calm and clear, whispered promises of renewal and hope. Isla, whose fateful encounter with the ghost ship had sparked the entire quest, felt a deep sense of closure. She knew that while the mystery of the celestial maiden would forever linger in the hearts of those who believed, its curse had finally been broken. The relic was enshrined in a modest temple on the cliffs, a symbol of the sacrifices made in the resilience of the human spirit in the face of ancient, unfathomable forces. Captain Roland, Lillian, Jonas, and Isla each returned to their lives forever changed by the events that had transpired. Their story, of a shipwreck that vanished with the tide, of a cursed relic, and of a community united in hope, was passed down through the generations. Elders recounted the tale by the light of evening fires, ensuring that the lessons learned were never forgotten, that some mysteries, no matter how deeply hidden, can be overcome through courage, unity, and the unyielding pursuit of truth. In time, the legend of the vanishing wreck became a source of inspiration for all who heard it. It was a reminder that even the darkest curses can be undone, and that the tide of destiny, though powerful and unpredictable, can be redirected by those brave enough to stand against it. Years later, as the waves lapped gently against the shores of a now peaceful Mariner's Rest, Isla would often walk along the beach at dawn. In the quiet moments before the day fully broke, she would remember the ghostly sight of the celestial maiden, a bittersweet memory of a time when the sea whispered secrets of loss and redemption. And as the tide rolled in and out with its eternal rhythm, she knew that the vanishing shipwreck, though gone from sight, would forever remain a part of the town's soul, a legacy of mystery, sacrifice, and the promise of new beginnings. For generations, the people of the valley had revered the river as a living chronicle of their history. Elders would gather around crackling fires to recount the story of the Dawnwater, a river born from celestial tears, gifted by a sorrowful goddess whose lament filled the heavens with rain. It was said that the river's nightly bounty sustained the land, nourishing crops and quenching the thirst of animals and people alike. But with the arrival of each dawn, the river's flow mysteriously halted, as though the night's magic was recalled to the cosmos. Local lore held that the drying of the river was no accident. It was a cosmic reminder that all things in life were ephemeral, and that beauty, like water, must sometimes recede to reveal the hidden layers of the earth. Many believed that the river's disappearance was a ritual, a natural cleansing that allowed the land to renew itself. Others whispered that the river was keeping a secret, a mystery that awaited those brave enough to follow its course beyond the daylight hours. Nestled in the valley was the quaint town of Marindel, a place where mist draped the streets at twilight in the scent of dew mingled with the aroma of freshly baked bread. Marindel's residents lived by the rhythm of the dawn water. They rose each morning to find their fields parched and their wells nearly empty, only to witness a miraculous transformation when twilight returned and the river flowed once more. In the heart of Marindel lived a young cartographer named Amon. Known for his intricate maps and a heart filled with curiosity, Amon was captivated by the river's dual nature. Every day he would venture to its banks at the edge of the town, recording the shifting landscapes and the subtle changes in the soil where water had once run. His notebooks filled with sketches of a river that defied the natural order. A river that, at dawn, surrendered its waters to the earth only to be reborn in the twilight. Amon's fascination was not shared by all. Some in Marindel saw the drying river as a curse, a sign of impending drought or the fickleness of fortune. Others believed it to be an omen, a prelude to a great change that would either lift the town to prosperity or plunge it into despair. Yet for Amon, the river was a puzzle, a challenge to be solved by those willing to look beyond the surface of everyday life. One crisp autumn evening, as the sky blushed with the colors of sunset, Amon met a mysterious wanderer by the river's edge. The stranger, clad in a cloak that shimmered like the night sky, introduced herself as Serene. a name that meant moon in a language long forgotten. With eyes as deep and enigmatic as the midnight river, Selene spoke in soft, measured tones about the river's hidden secret. Every dawn, when the river runs dry, she said, it is not a sign of loss, but of transformation. The water is not vanishing. It is journeying to a place beyond our sight, where time and memory are intertwined with the essence of the world. Only by following its path can one discover the truth of our existence. Her words struck a chord deep within Amon, igniting in him a determination to uncover the mystery of the dawn water. Together they devised a plan to follow the river's course after it had run dry at dawn, venturing into uncharted lands where few from Marindel had ever dared to go. In the days that followed, Amon gathered maps, ancient manuscripts, and tools of navigation from the town's small library. He sought out the wisdom of the elders, who recounted tales of lost civilizations and celestial alignments that influenced the river's fate. Each story, though different in detail, painted a picture of a time when the river's secret was known, a time when people believed that the river was a portal to a forgotten era of magic and renewal. The air in Marindel was thick with anticipation and uncertainty. Farmers worried about the coming dry spells. Merchants fretted over the loss of trade, as the river once served as a route for goods. Yet amid the apprehension, a sense of wonder prevailed, an understanding that nature's enigmas were not to be feared, but embraced as the pulse of life itself. At the break of one fateful day, when the first light of dawn revealed a barren riverbed, Amon and Selene set out on their journey. Their path led them through fields of withered wildflowers and past ancient stone ruins, half consumed by the relentless advance of time. The earth, cracked and silent, told stories of long-forgotten rains and the ceaseless march of seasons. As they walked, the companions encountered curious signs along the way. Strange glyphs etched into the rock, remnants of a language that hinted at the river's celestial origins. These markings spoke of a sacred cycle, a celestial dance that governed the interplay between water and time. Every symbol, every faded inscription urged them onward, deeper into a wilderness where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural blurred. The journey was not without hardship. As the sun climbed higher, the heat became oppressive, and the absence of water weighed heavily on their spirits. At one point, they found themselves lost in a labyrinth of ancient canyons where the walls whispered secrets of a forgotten age. In those moments, Amon's resolve was tested by the relentless dryness and the specter of despair that threatened to overwhelm him. Yet, in the quiet solitude of that harsh landscape, Amon discovered an inner strength. He began to see the desert not as a barren wasteland, but as a canvas upon which the universe painted its timeless poetry. With Selene's enigmatic guidance and his own deep connection to the land, he learned to interpret the subtle shifts in the wind, the patterns of the clouds, and the silent language of the earth. Every trial, every hardship became a lesson in the art of perseverance and the beauty of transformation. One night, beneath a sky ablaze with stars and the gentle glow of a crescent moon, the duo stumbled upon a secluded temple carved into a mountainside. Within the hallowed chamber of this ancient sanctuary, they discovered murals and inscriptions that recounted the prophecy of the drying river. The texts spoke of a time when the dawn water would be called upon to relinquish its surface waters, sending them on a journey to nourish the hidden springs of creation. According to the prophecy, this phenomenon was not a harbinger of doom, but a necessary precursor to rebirth. The water gathering in secret caverns and sacred basins was destined to return to the land in a burst of life-giving energy that would restore balance and awaken dormant magic. The temple's high priestess, immortalized in faded frescoes, was depicted holding a chalice filled with shimmering water, a symbol of hope and renewal. As Amon and Selene absorbed the temple's ancient wisdom, a sudden vision seized them. In this trance-like state, Aemon saw the river in its full splendor, not as a dry, cracked bed, but as a roaring cascade of crystal-clear water that danced over smooth stones, reflecting the brilliant hues of dawn. He saw a land reborn, a tapestry of lush forests, vibrant meadows, and sparkling lakes that emerged from the hidden reservoirs where the water had gathered. The vision was both exhilarating and bittersweet. It was a promise of what could be, a future where the cyclical magic of nature restored the vitality of the land. Yet it was also a reminder of the transient nature of beauty, that life itself was a series of endings and beginnings, each as fleeting and precious as the last. Guided by the temple's prophecy and Aemon's newfound resolve, the travelers pressed on until they reached a vast canyon where the earth opened like a wound. There, in the heart of the rocky expanse, they discovered a hidden basin, a subterranean reservoir filled with water so pure it glowed with an inner light. This was the secret destination of the Dawn Water, the place where the river's essence gathered to await its moment of return. The basin was encircled by ancient stone pillars covered in moss and lichen, each etched with symbols that resonated with the same language found in the temple. The air around the basin pulsed with a quiet energy, as though the earth itself was breathing in anticipation of a long-awaited reunion with its lifeblood. In that sacred space, Aemon and Selene encountered a solitary guardian, a wizened figure whose eyes held the sorrow and wisdom of centuries. The guardian, known only as Thalen, explained that the reservoir was the heart of the prophecy. Every time the river ran dry at dawn, its water journeyed to this hidden basin, where it would rest and rejuvenate until the celestial alignment signaled its return. Thalen spoke of a ritual, the ritual of reclamation, passed down through secret traditions. This ceremony required a pure heart, unwavering resolve, and the willingness to embrace both loss and renewal. It was a rite that allowed the water to merge once more with the surface of the earth, rekindling the life force that sustained the land. Moved by the gravity of the moment, Aemon resolved to help complete the ritual, knowing that its success would mean more than the revival of a river. It would herald a new era of hope for his people. In the days that followed, as the next cycle of dawn approached, Aemon, Selene, and Thalen prepared for the ritual of reclamation. Under a sky heralding the convergence of rare celestial bodies, a moon swollen with silver light and distant stars aligning in a cosmic dance, they gathered at the hidden basin. The air was electric with expectancy, and even the wind seemed to whisper in a harmonious anticipation. With trembling hands and resolute hearts, the trio enacted the ritual. Ancient chants filled the cavern, their cadence echoing against the stone walls. Aemon poured a vial of sacred water into the reservoir, a symbolic offering that represented the connection between the old ways and the promise of tomorrow. As the final words of the incantation faded into the night, the basin began to glow more intensely, and the water stirred as if awakening from a long slumber. In a moment that defied explanation, the hidden reservoir pulsed with a surge of energy, and the dormant channels deep within the earth trembled. A gentle rumble rose from beneath, growing into a powerful cascade. Before their astonished eyes, the water began to flow upward, snaking its way through underground passages until it burst forth onto the surface. With a sound like the jubilant laughter of 1,000 spirits, the river, the dawn water, returned in a torrent of shimmering brilliance. The once cracked riverbed transformed before their eyes. The parched earth drank deeply of the water, and in its place emerged a ribbon of liquid light that wound through the valley. The reversal was complete. What had been lost at dawn was now restored in the glow of a new day. The ritual had not only revived the river, but had also rekindled the hope that had long been dormant in the hearts of the people of Marindel. Word of the miraculous revival spread swiftly through the valley. When Aemon and Selene returned to Marindel, They were met with scenes of transformation. Fields that once lay barren now flourished with verdant crops. The town's wells brimmed with water, and the people who had once lived in a state of cautious resignation now celebrated with renewed vigor. The dawn water, with its nightly mystery and now triumphant return, had become a symbol of nature's resilience and the indomitable spirit of renewal. Festivals were held along the riverbanks, where families gathered to honor the ancient cycle of loss and rebirth. Elders recounted the legend of the river that ran dry at dawn, a tale that had once been a somber reminder of impermanence, but was now transformed into a narrative of hope, perseverance, and the promise of tomorrow. Aemon, forever changed by his journey, dedicated himself to preserving the delicate balance between nature and time. He became the town's chronicler, recording not only maps of the ever-changing landscape, but also the stories and lessons that the dawn water had taught. His writings, infused with the wisdom of the past and the promise of the future, reminded all who read them that even the most mysterious phenomena in nature served a purpose in the grand tapestry of life. Selene, too, chose to remain in the valley, her enigmatic presence a bridge between the old ways and the new era. Together with Thalen, she guided those who sought to understand the deeper rhythms of the earth, teaching the people of Marindel that every ending bore the seed of a new beginning, and that the ephemeral nature of life was to be cherished as much as the moments of triumph. Years passed, and the legend of the dawn water became woven into the very fabric of Marindel. The river, now revered not for its nightly disappearance, but for the wonder of its revival, flowed as a constant reminder of the natural cycle of transformation. Each dawn, when the river ran dry and then returned in the twilight, the people recalled the profound lesson that all things must ebb before they can surge anew. Aemon's maps and writings became treasured relics, studied by scholars far and wide who sought to understand the interplay between nature, time, and the human spirit. The story of a river that runs dry at dawn, a story of loss, mystery, and eventual renewal, served as a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed transient and uncertain. And so, the dawn water continued its eternal dance, a river whose quiet disappearance at dawn was not a tragedy, but a necessary interlude in the symphony of life. In its mysterious ebb and flow, the people of Marindel found solace, wisdom, and the enduring reminder that from every ending springs the promise of a new beginning.